finally we have Kelly Westerlund.
Good afternoon, everybody.
My name is Kelly Westerlund. I graduated here last December, and this was my senior thesis. I wanted to write about the Warsaw Pact because I found a lot of people have a lot of misconceptions about what it was. So here we go. Okay. So what I've experienced is that a lot of people think that the Warsaw Pact was just another way for the Soviet Union to control the countries of Eastern Europe. My research showed that that was not the case. So through my presentation, I will demonstrate that. We're going to talk about what Stalin's actions in Eastern Europe in the post-World War II era, how that affected the creation of the Warsaw Pact and how it was governed, what NATO had to do with the creation, and what Khrushchev's goals were for the Warsaw Pact. We're also going to talk about different countries that challenged Soviet authority. The countries Albania, East Germany, and Hungary are going to be discussed. Okay, so once the Red Army started to be able to drive the Nazis out of Russia, Stalin had a few goals for himself and his country in the post-World War II era. His goals were to protect himself first, protect his regime, his country, and then lastly his ideology, which was communism. So he used the Red Army as he was marching through Eastern Europe, pushing the Nazis back, to install regimes that were going to be loyal to him. His original plan was to set up what he called people's democracies. And the purpose of these people's democracies was actually to allow for a natural progression to socialism and then communism, and that sort of thing. But the problem was that the communists were a very small majority in a lot of these communist countries, so it was very difficult for the party to gain any kind of control and just kind of allow for that natural progression to happen. So it became really necessary, really, for Stalin to install dictators that were loyal to him first, loyal to what he wanted to do, and relied upon him in order for his goals to be met. The purpose of this was to kind of set up a buffer zone between Eastern Russia and the non-socialist countries in the West. And this also helped spread his ideology. So as he was doing this, there was actually very little backlash from the United States and the United Kingdom. It was already agreed at the Yalta Conference at this time that the Soviet Union would have a lot of the influence in Eastern Europe. The only stipulation was that there was going to be free elections for Poland. Romania was one of the first targets of his plan, and it was to break up the German-Romanian alliance. And what he did was he sent the Red Army in, deposed the leadership there, which created a power vacuum, which he replaced with communist leaders that were loyal to Stalin specifically. And that's just an example of an agreement that he had with Churchill of control. So the Soviet Union was going to have 90% of the control in Romania, Bulgaria they would have 75%, and in Hungary they would have 50%. Which, remember that, because that'll be important a little bit. So, Stalin dies, leaving behind, a little bit of a power vacuum in the Soviet Union itself, which Nikita Khrushchev eventually fills. And his goal was to create a European-wide treaty. He wanted to appear to be the sensible and peaceful side, and there was also a great nuclear power gap between the Soviet Union and the United States that they really just weren't able to make up at the time. So one of the steps that he did to create this European treaty was he actually requested to join NATO in 1945. He pointed out that it was alliances that started the world wars. He didn't want to have a West versus East kind of situation that could start a new war. And he thought NATO was an aggressive action against the Soviet Union, pretty much like, all these countries get to join their secret club, but they don't get to join the club. He was also very, very afraid of German militarism being revived, and this was one of his biggest fears. So when West Germany joins NATO in 1955, that was kind of the red line where he was like, okay, we need to do something. So he decided he needed a comparable alliance to kind of negotiate with the West. So this is basically what the Warsaw Treaty said. It says that all members would negotiate peacefully with the United Nations. All members would cooperate and assist each other in their goals and their struggles. Member nations can use all necessary force if another member is attacked. All countries were welcome to join, regardless of their political or economic system. Member nations had to commit certain divisions of the military to the unified command, which was usually under the command of a Russian or a Soviet. And the treaty was supposed to be in effect for 20 years, unless a European treaty was created that would supersede it. So this is what a lot of people think of. This is what a lot of people think of the world at this time. And it kind of looks like the world is like nicely divided in half, with West on one side and their nuclear arm, and the Soviet Union on the other. But the world is round, so you can see how the Soviet Union can start to feel a little bit more paranoid, because you can see they're surrounded by their enemies in Europe, across the Arctic there on this side, and then Germany and South Korea, or Japan and South Korea on the other side. So they started to feel a little bit closed in. Now, one country that really challenged Soviet authority was Albania. That's because it was set up a little bit differently. It was established by Yugoslavia to be its 7th republic. But their leader there, Enver Hoxha, really idolized Stalin, really took after him his teachings. And when Yugoslavia was being a little bit oppressive, he went to Joseph Stalin for help. And that's a picture of him with Stalin on the left there and Enver Hoxha on the right. And so when Khrushchev comes to power and he gives a secret speech where Khrushchev denounces Stalin and says that he was a criminal and all these other sorts of things, it really makes him distrust Khrushchev, because, this guy just is saying, like, your hero is an awful person, is a criminal. So it created a lot of tension between Hoxha and Khrushchev. So these tensions boil over in 1961 at the Vlorë naval base. Soviet and Albanian troops at that base started to clash a little bit, and Albania seized Soviet equipment there, some submarines, ships at the base, and wouldn't allow them to leave or anything. So the Soviet Union actually goes to the Warsaw Pact instead and says, this is what's going on, how should we proceed with this? The Warsaw Pact rules on the side of the Soviet Union, says like, hey, Albania, you can't really do that. So the USSR decides to withdraw all their ships from the base, but Albania does not allow them to leave. So at the end of the discussions and the Warsaw Pact trials, that sort of thing, Albania ends up actually keeping 4 submarines, arms, ships, and other Soviet equipment, which did not make the Soviet Union very happy. So Albania and Soviet ties were completely severed. Even Albania got to keep its place in the Warsaw Pact, but they weren't allowed to sit on any councils. They were really just a nominal member. And a lot of people wonder why there wasn't a military response from the Soviet Union, because they stole military equipment from them. And Khrushchev didn't crack down on them because they weren't really challenging communism itself. They were just challenging the Soviet Union. So he thought that there was going to be a diplomatic solution instead of sending in the military like Stalin would have done and just killing Albanians. Now in East Germany, they had a little bit of a different leader. Walter Ulbricht was very smart guy, really manipulated Khrushchev in a lot of ways. East Germany was made up of USSR's half of Germany after World War II. Walter Ulbricht was their leader, and he was a very devoted Stalinist. And as I said, he manipulates Khrushchev to get what he wants. Now, Eastern Europeans are very, very distrustful of Germany. They obviously just went through a world war where Nazis were marching through their countries and committing horrible atrocities, so they obviously weren't very big fans of the Germans. But the economy was failing in East Germany because of socialism and a lot of the problems that come with being a post-war economy. But some were really committed to socialism succeeding in this country. So Khrushchev was really pressured to make sure that this country was going to succeed. And he thought that if socialism failed in East Germany, the rest of Eastern Europe was going to fail as well. So Ulbricht was able to use this position to manipulate Khrushchev to get what he wants. And what Ulbricht wants is the Berlin Wall to be built. As I said, despite best efforts, the GDR's economy was still failing. And that was partly because of the brain drain in Berlin. What was happening was very highly educated people like teachers and doctors and scientists were all able to leave East Germany via West Berlin and then fly over to West Germany and continue their work. Wages were a lot better in West Germany. Quality of life, some people just simply did not want to live in a communist country. It was really easy for them to leave at this time. Like I said, they could just go to West Berlin and then fly out from there. Ulbricht really wanted the Berlin Wall to be built so people could not leave the country anymore. Khrushchev was really reluctant about doing this. He was worried about Western backlash, and he thought that it would be considered a declaration of bankruptcy for socialism, that if they have to build this wall to keep people in, what does that say about the system? So what he does, actually, instead of being a dictator and going in there and saying, you're not doing this, he allows Ulbricht to go to the Warsaw Pact and petition his arguments. And the Warsaw Pact really chastises Ulbricht for his Stalinist policies, and they do not allow him to close the airspace out of Berlin, but they do allow him to build a wall, obviously. And that's why a lot of people were still able to like sneak over the wall and then back out. Oh, really? Okay. I was like, really? I'm so sorry. I'll hurry this up. So, that's an example of Ulbricht being able to manipulate Khrushchev as opposed to the other way around. And Hungary, there was revolts because the Communist Party wasn't very popular. But it was more Khrushchev was being really criticized because he didn't want to be Stalinist, but he was being very, very pressured by other Warsaw Pact members, so that's why he simply takes up that. And what you should take away from this was the Warsaw Pact was not an instrument of control for the Soviet Union. It was supposed to be a way for the Soviet Union to negotiate with NATO. And the biggest problem in the Warsaw Pact was the legacy of Stalin and how leaders were really trying to be loyal to Stalin instead of, the ideology. And Khrushchev was often influenced and forced to act by other Warsaw Pact members as opposed to the other way around, which is what most people think. So, sorry, I didn't mean to.